So we are talking about the movie The Windmill Massacre, also known as simply The Windmill. This one is directed by Nick Jongoleris, or something very similar to that anyway. Sorry if I butchered your name there. Now the story is actually set in Holland, as you'd probably expect, being about windmills. And it basically follows a group of strangers as they go on a bus ride, basically, to tour a variety of different historical windmills around Holland. And their bus crashes, and they are left stranded. Or so they seem. There's a windmill nearby, but it seems to be occupied by a mysterious, supernatural slasher, the Miller. And obviously he decides he's going to kind of take off these victims one by one, and pretty much there's your horror film. So, what do I think about this movie? I have to say, I kind of like this film. I do have some problems with it, and one of the problems I'm going to have with it is a spoiler, which I will save until the end, so just bear that in mind if you haven't seen this film. But let me talk about the positives first of all. I have to say, the biggest positive for me is they actually do some decent characterisation on all the kind of the characters. In a lot of these kind of horror films, I feel that one of the problems is that they only really kind of give you any background to the main person. So you know all of the rest of the people are purely cannon fodder, and you're waiting for them to be offed, basically. This film takes a different approach. I mean, there's one that clearly gets more screen time than the others, but nonetheless, everyone gets a good backstory. Even, you know, every single character basically will give you that kind of that feeling that you actually care about these characters a little bit. You kind of understand, so to speak, you know, where they're coming from, their backstory. So that was really, really good. I really like that. Now there is a sort of common thread that kind of binds them all together, so you can say this is somewhat fated, shall we say. But I really like that's the first thing. Acting, I thought was all pretty good here. I kind of quite liked it. There was no real sort of bad acting among the group, I don't think. Maybe the little boy from time to time, but, you know, child actors on the low-budget horror film, you know, what are you going to do? I actually thought the visual style here was very good. It did remind me a little bit of Jeepers Creepers 2, and sprinkled with a little bit of kind of Evil Dead as well, I would have to say. But I kind of quite like the aesthetics. The windmills are very creepy. Can't help but remind me a little bit of the scene from Army of Darkness as well. But I have to say, I really did like that kind of the creepy look, and it really does give you that kind of that nostalgic feel of the kind of the creepy old haunted house. This one being obviously a windmill as well. So that I all thought was quite good. There's a reasonable amount of gore here as well. Some pretty interesting kills involving a variety of different kind of like implements, shall we say. It's not overly gory. I feel the first death is probably the best, but nonetheless pretty good in regards to the actual kill itself. Negatives for me, I feel the Miller itself, the kind of the main bad guy, not bad, but I feel he was a little bit generic to a certain degree. The main female lead, basically, I feel as well, you know, you're meant to feel sympathetic, but I didn't think he did a particularly good job of kind of making you feel that sympathetic towards her. And I have to say, I had some problems with kind of the way her character went. There's a kind of an epilogue in the end, so to speak, what I thought was quite good and what happens, but I did have some problems with the character going through. So the next thing I'm going to talk about is a bit of a spoiler. I'll try and be as vague as possible if you haven't seen the movie, but this is going to be a bit of a spoiler. So, towards the end of the film, I have a problem with the third act of this film. Part of it is because of this, like I said, the way they depicted the main female lady, the Aussie girl, basically. But the main issue I have is it's revealed that a secondary bad guy. And we are told basically that the Miller he's kind of punishing people for their sins. And this is kind of why I said there's an element of fate. All these people have kind of been into this path, have some kind of sin. And the Miller is there, and he's basically killing everyone that has sinned in the past. But then we have a secondary bad guy who is offing all the innocents. And I'm like, well, and they're in cahoots, they're in league with each other. I'm thinking, well, what's the point? Why have this guy killing the sinners only when everyone's going to die anyway? Why not just make him going to kill anyone? It seems pointless to me to have that division, and then you kind of set up this guy, he's only going to kill people that sins, and then have some other guy who's going to kill anyone left over. seems pointless to me, just to have that little twist in it, basically. There's a secondary bad guy. And the other problem I have, and it's probably the same story plot, is that by default, that means the secondary bad guy is also a sinner. The miller is only killing sinners. The other person, the other bad guy, so to speak, I won't say who it is killing innocents, and therefore becomes a sinner himself. So why doesn't the miller then go for him? Doesn't make sense. It's a real massive plot hole to me, which I had a massive problem with, and it seems so obvious that it really affected the kind of the third act of this film, and it's all kind of revealed. Up until that point, I felt it was a very creditable horror film, and kind of was quite well thought out and well directed. But that to me was such a massive gaping hole. I ended up having a bit of an issue with it. But overall, I still found this as a quite fun horror film, even though it doesn't make sense to me. Some good elements, some good cinematography, some creepy kind of set pieces. Enjoyed it, some decent horror effects. Overall, I give this movie a 7 out of 10. I still kind of enjoyed it, even though, like I said, I had a big problem with some of the story elements here. Anyway, have you seen it? What did you think of it? And what did you think of my plot hole as well? I mean, was that something that you noticed if you have seen it? Leave me a comment and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.